Welcome back to Elements in the Wild. Here's your host, the amazing Duke Ellington.
Thank you. Today in Elements in the World, we'll be taking a glimpse at three very important elements found in our bodies: potassium, sodium, and carbon. We have these three scientists with us today, one of whom is Dr. Bradford Hunt, who is an expert on the element sodium. We also have Dr. Adam Miller, who is going to discuss the element carbon. Last but not least, oh my god, I'm getting so pumped right now, we have a doctor who is very passionate in his work, and his name is Dr. John Vinci. He's going to inform us on the element of potassium. One thing that these men have all in common is that they have dedicated a large portion of their lives studying one of these elements. At the end of this show, each scientist will give his opinion on which element he believes is most important to his human life. Let's go talk to these fine gentlemen right now. Now to present to you Bradford House, and he will be giving us a brief history about his element.
Thank you, Duke. Well, it's actually quite amusing because sodium was discovered by the exact same man who discovered potassium, and that man is Sir Humphrey Davy. He discovered sodium in 1807. Prior to this time, there was no distinction between sodium and potassium. But thanks to the experiment that Dr. Vinci just explained, they were able to discern the distinction between the two.
Now presenting to you Dr. John Vinci.
Well, sir, potassium was discovered by a man named Humphrey Davy. He isolated the element for the first time in 1807 at the Royal Institution in London. It's very intriguing how he came to isolate this element. He first electrolyzed the dry potassium hydroxide and found drops having a high metallic glow to them. Potassium is actually the first element to be isolated by this electrolysis process. Thank you, that'll be all for now.
Carbon wasn't discovered by a specific person, but it was found in prehistoric times. The specific patterns of carbon were recognized by Shelley, who measured the various gases that could be absorbed by carbon obtained from distant sources in 1773. Von Astrig-Joko set the basis for the commercial development of the activated carbons in 1901. That's the history of carbon, my friend. See you soon.
Bravo, gentlemen. Now each of these men will discuss the chemical and physical properties of their respective elements.
Oh, Duke. Sodium, the element, is located in the third period in the first family on the periodic table. It has the atomic number 11 and has an atomic mass of 22.990. Obviously that's going to be rounded. See, the electron configuration of sodium is actually quite short, very simple. I'll give you both the regular configuration and the abbreviated shorthand configuration. So the regular configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 3p6, and 3s1. Very simple, very simple. And then obviously when you're creating a shorthand configuration, you just want to just put it at the noble gas, and then you'll just read the configuration after that. So that would be very simple. It's just neon Na3s1. Okay, so let me just think about what else I want to tell you about sodium. So obviously, taking what we know about reactivity, sodium, we can just deduct that sodium is a very reactive element. And sodium, unlike a lot of other elements, can never be found free in nature. It's always going to be bonded with something else. You never find it by itself. It's got to be separated by means of a man. Okay, and the few compounds that you'll see, actually a lot of compounds, I'm sorry, that sodium will be found in. You've got sodium chloride, sodium nitrite. I mean, really the combinations of, there's so many. It's awesome. And then just the physical characteristics of sodium. It's a soft, bright, silvery, alkali metal. I mean, that's really all I have to say about sodium.
Woo! Potassium!
Alright, Dr. John Vinci. I know you're excited, but can you please tell us more about your element?
Potassium is just an all-around good element, alright? It's in the fourth period in the first family of the periodic table. The atomic number, 19. Atomic mass, 39.0983. The electron configuration, it's a little long, but it's 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s1. The abbreviated configuration is argon, AR, 4s1. Alright? Potassium is bright and soft, silvery alkali metal. Potassium is very active. It's the second highest, most reactive element under lithium. When potassium reacts with water, it produces hydroxide in an elegant purple color. If you guys didn't already know, potassium is found in a number of foods, including bananas to chicken.
Carbon can be located in the second period in group 14 of the periodic table. It has the atomic number 6 and the atomic mass 12.011. Its electric configuration is very simple, 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. The abbreviated configuration is He2s2, 2p2. Carbon is a diamond-like clear-back graphite rock, which is a non-metal in the periodic table. Carbon, as a graphite or diamond, does not react with water under normal conditions. Under more forcing conditions, the reaction becomes important. When it is restricted, the use of oxygen, or the air that we breathe, incomplete combustion to carbon monoxide occurs.
That was some heavy information, but some very well presented information at that. Why don't we move on to a question that our audience will surely be curious about? How does each of these elements get used in today's world? Where can we find sodium, carbon, and potassium every day?
Well, Duke, sodium has a lot of uses. Now, usually people think of sodium, they think of food, but sodium can also be used as a coolant for nuclear reactors, and it can also be used in street lights. Now, the human body, it needs a certain amount of sodium to, function properly, but because it helps regulate blood pressure, and, it helps regulate the functions of the muscles and nerves as well, and you really need that in your body. Now, like I said previously, it's found in many of the foods that we eat, sometimes naturally, a lot of times as an additive, fast foods, McDonald's, Burger King, Arby's, they use it as an additive to make their food taste better, even though too much sodium is really not good for you. And like I said, usually the most common form of sodium that you'll see is table salt, NaCl. That's what you might put on some food. That's might be what added to your food. So obviously you have that. And too much sodium, it can just lead to a plethora of health problems. You've got kidney disease, you've got enlarged heart muscles, you've got stroke as well. I could keep going on, but we need sodium, but we need it in moderation. Not too much, not too little. It regulates the functions of our body. There we go.
Alright, Dr. John Vinci, tell us why your element is important in daily life.
Potassium is found in nearly all foods, there's no doubt about that. Potassium is crucial to heart function and is extremely important with muscle contraction. Studies also show that potassium could prevent osteoporosis and a lower risk of having a stroke. When potassium enters your body, it builds proteins and breaks down carbohydrates, builds muscles, and maintains your normal body growth. A recommended diet for potassium for an adult is around 4.7 grams per day. An excessive amount of potassium can cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and intensive gas. Some common foods that contain a lot of potassium are bananas, avocados, tomatoes, chicken, and cantaloupe. Have a nice day.
Carbon is used to make diamonds, electronics, pencil lead, food, and drinks. Carbon is the component required to form proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and it plays a crucial role in managing the physiology of the body. Carbon is the main piece of a macromolecule such as lipids, proteins, nucleic acid, and carbohydrates. All plants have carbon as their main important element. Without carbon, they wouldn't exist. Neither would me, you, Brad, or even John. Carbon is essential for human life and will continue to be for the rest of eternity. Thank you.
Alright, Dr. John Vinci, tell us why you believe that your element is most important for human life.
Well, as explained before, all these elements have their own ways of helping the human body. For example, potassium can help prevent certain diseases, sodium can regulate blood pressure, carbon makes up most of your body. If us humans don't provide ourselves with these essential elements, then problems could arise within our body. I believe that all elements are equally important to succeed in life, even though each serve a different purpose in your body. Yeah.
Alright. Now that right there is some quality information. Let's give a hand for these amazing men. Now we'll move on to our fourth and final section, where these scientists will tell us why the element is most important to the human life.
I mean, sodium is really, really important, but I mean, as you've heard from Dr. Miller and Dr. Vinci, all these elements that we've discussed today play chief roles in the functions of our body, and obviously some other things on Earth. Now, I mean, if we don't provide our body with any of these, we're going to have a big problem. I mean, that's just how it is. So, I'm going to have to go with Dr. Vinci on this one. We really can't put one of these elements before the other, because you can't live without any of them. That's what I got to say. Let's see what Dr. Miller has.
Yes, Bradley, I do agree. All these elements are crucial for human life. If we didn't have any of these elements in our lives, I don't think we would be able to live the way we are right now. Potassium, sodium, and carbon, I think, in my opinion, besides oxygen, are the three elements that are helping us stay alive. Potassium and sodium are very important for muscles in the heart, and our bodies are 18% carbon. And I think that these elements are equally important for the role of human life. Thank you, and good night. Thank you for joining us tonight on Elements in the Wild. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day for coming to explore some elements with us. Let's give one more hand for these wonderful scientists who have been kind enough to join us today. Cheerio.
Welcome back to Elements in the Wild. Here's your host, the amazing Duke Ellington!
Patient.
Welcome back to Elements in the Wild. Here's your host, Duke Ellington!
You say Duke Ellington!
Welcome back to Elements in the Wild. Here's your host, the amazing Duke Ellington!